In a quiet Alabama county, a black patrol officer responds to a routine call, and finds himself inside a house where the badge on his chest means nothing. The deeper he steps inside, the clearer it becomes. Some lines are drawn long before you arrive. Now, surrounded by silent threats in familiar uniforms, he's faced with a choice no academy ever prepared him for. Who protects you when the law belongs to someone else? It started as a routine assist call. I'd transferred down to Wren County, Alabama, barely 6 months in, a lateral move I thought would put me closer to family. The department was small, 17 officers, all white, except me. They called me LT even though my badge said patrolman. At first, I took it as respect. Later, I realized it wasn't. That morning, the air hung thick with July heat, sky bruised with storm clouds. I was fueling up my cruiser when dispatch called. Unit 12, report to 43 Maple, domestic disturbance. Back up en route. I acknowledged, heart ticking a little faster. Maple was out past the county line, old farmland, mostly white families with money too old to trace. The house sat back from the road, big, pale brick, magnolia trees framing a wraparound porch. 2 vehicles in the driveway, a muddy Silverado and a white Crown Vic with no plates. I parked behind the truck, radioed my arrival. I stepped out slow, hand brushing my belt, not my weapon, just habit. The front door was cracked open. Wren County Sheriff's Department, I called, voice steady. No answer. I knocked, louder. The door creaked wider. Inside, the air was stale, smelling of bleach and something sharp. A man's voice echoed from deeper inside, low, rough. I moved in carefully, shoes soft on hardwood. Sheriff's Department, I repeated. A figure stepped from the hallway. White male, mid-40s, pale eyes, sharp jaw. He wore jeans, no shirt. His hands hung loose by his sides. You lost? He asked. I kept my tone professional. We got a call about a disturbance. He looked past me, scanning the porch like expecting someone else. You alone? Backup's on the way. His lip twitched, almost a smile. You always come alone out here? I didn't answer. My radio crackled faint, static, no voice. You from around here? He asked. Born in Birmingham. He gave a slow nod, stepping closer. We don't see many like you on this side of the county. I caught movement in the hallway behind him. A second man, tall, lean, stood half in shadow, watching. No expression. I felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. Just something pressing in behind my ribs. Sir, I'm going to need you both to step outside, I said. Let's talk this through. The first man tilted his head. Why don't you come on in, officer? His tone light, almost friendly. My pulse ticked higher. I'm fine right here. From outside, gravel crunched, another vehicle. I glanced toward the door. A second patrol cruiser pulled up, but it wasn't a marked unit. It was one of those old department cars we'd retired months ago. I recognized the man who got out. Deputy Carl Jenkins. He'd been on the force 20 years. Never spoke more than 5 words to me. He didn't look at me as he walked up the porch steps. Afternoon, gentlemen, Carl said, voice dry. The first man grinned now, full teeth. We're just having a friendly chat. Carl gave him a nod. Then turned his eyes to me. You need to come inside, LT, Carl said. I stared at him. The man in the hallway shifted again, a flicker of motion. I'm going to call this in, I said quietly, thumb brushing my radio. Carl's eyes didn't move. Radio's dead this far out. He wasn't wrong. I'd heard about dead zones in the county's western edge, old copper lines, spotty signal. But this wasn't a glitch. This was something else. And every hair on my arms knew it. I kept my voice even. You mind telling me what's going on here? Carl's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just a misunderstanding. I felt it, then, a slow, cold certainty settling behind my sternum. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not alone. Not like this. And whatever this was, it wasn't over. Carl stepped aside, gesturing toward the door with an easy, practiced motion, one I'd seen him use with suspects before. The message was clear: walk in or things get worse. I took one slow breath. My badge felt like dead weight on my chest. Lead the way, I said, voice low. The first man backed into the hallway, never turning his back on me. The tall one followed, silent. Inside, the walls were lined with faded photographs, Confederate flags, hunting trophies, portraits of men in uniform I didn't recognize. The smell hit stronger now: bleach, metal, blood. We stepped into a wide living room. A wooden table stood in the center, scarred with deep knife marks. On it lay a badge. Wren County Sheriff's badge. Carl shut the door behind us with a soft click. Sit, the first man said, nodding at a chair. I didn't move. I'll stand. The tall man leaned against the far wall, arms crossed. His eyes stayed on mine, flat, unblinking. The first man smiled like we were old friends. You know what this is? He tapped the badge with a single finger. It's a badge. He chuckled. It's a reminder. Of what? That some folks wear it, and some don't. Carl stood behind me now, too close. I could feel the heat of him. You don't belong here, LT, Carl said softly. I stared at the badge. The room seemed smaller. You want me to leave? I asked. The first man's smile thinned. We want you to understand. He slid a folded piece of paper across the table. I didn't reach for it. Read, he said. I glanced down. It was a printed list, names. About a dozen. Some I recognized. Deputies. County officials. My name wasn't on it. Yet. This is who keeps this place right, the man said. Keeps the peace, our way. The air tightened. And if I don't? I asked. Carl's voice dropped, nearly a whisper. Then you won't be needed. The tall man shifted his weight. I caught a glimpse of something tucked behind his belt, a badge, turned inward. My mouth felt dry. I wasn't sure if I could reach for my radio without them moving first. Why show me this? I asked. The first man's eyes darkened. Because you're wearing that uniform. And because you got a choice. Carl's hand touched my shoulder, firm. I looked at him. You think that badge makes you safe? Carl asked, voice low. Out here? I stared back at him. Does it make you? Something flickered in Carl's eyes. Not anger. Not pride. Something hollow. The first man leaned in. We watch out for our own. You figure out which side that puts you on. The silence pressed against my skull. I nodded once, slow. I hear you. He smiled, soft and thin. Good. I turned toward the door, every muscle tight, waiting for a hand, a word, a gun. None came. Outside, the sky had gone dark with rain. I walked to my cruiser, forced my hands steady on the wheel. The radio crackled, clear now. Unit 12, status check. I stared at the mic. And didn't answer. They always say small towns watch their own, but no one warned me what that really meant. First, it was a car with no tags. Then, silent messages left where I couldn't ignore them. Every time I thought I was imagining things, the line between paranoia and reality moved a little closer. Now I'm left wondering, how do you stop a threat that never shows its face, and what happens when the one's supposed to help you pretend it isn't there? I'd been with the Franklin County Police Department for 9 years, long enough to know every road, every shortcut, every unwritten rule. Long enough to stop noticing the stairs. It was a Tuesday evening, late spring, that kind of sticky Georgia dusk when the sun hangs low but the heat won't quit. I was heading back from a welfare check off Route 60. Nothing unusual, a neighbor heard shouting, turned out to be a loud TV. I was rolling down Hollow Creek Road when I saw him. A gray Chevy Caprice, 2 cars behind me. No plates. Tinted windows. At first, I thought it might have been coincidence. Lots of folks around here drove those old Caprices. But when I turned off on Jasper Pike, so did he. No hesitation. I eased my cruiser down to 30, then 25. The Caprice stayed back, matching me. I took a left onto Red Oak Loop, a dead-end road with a single farmhouse. The Caprice didn't follow. It slowed at the corner, idled. I parked behind a tool shed, engine off. 2 minutes passed. 3. The Caprice sat there. I watched through the side mirror. The windows never rolled down. No movement. Then, as slow as syrup, the Caprice pulled away. I sat there another 10 minutes before heading back toward town. By the time I reached Main Street, the sun had dropped behind the trees. I stopped at Earl's Diner for a coffee. As I walked out, I saw it again. The Caprice. Parked across the street, tucked between 2 trucks. Same dark windows. I stood there, heartbeat crawling up my throat. This time, I called it in. Unit 7 to dispatch, any eyes on a gray Caprice, no tags, downtown Franklin? Static. Then, -7. You want backup? I hesitated. Negative. I didn't want to be that guy. The one who panics because somebody's driving behind him. I told myself it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe an old car. Maybe a coincidence. But then I started noticing the details. Like how, when I'd turn onto a side street, the Caprice would reappear 2 or 3 turns later. Or how it never parked too close, always within sight, never in reach. By the time I clocked out, it was past midnight. I drove home by the long route, out past the old mill road where cell service cuts out. And halfway there, I saw him again. This time in my rear view, headlights off. A shadow of a car, gliding silent behind me. I felt the weight of my sidearm on my hip. I kept driving, heart knocking steady against my ribs. Then, headlights. A split-second flash. The Caprice blinked them once. And vanished down a dirt road. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I asked around the department. Showed them the make, model, color. Blank stares. Shrugs. One of the older sergeants, white guy named Hank, gave me a look I won't forget. You sure you weren't seeing things, LT? I knew that tone. The one that says, don't make this a problem. By Friday, I'd almost convinced myself it was nothing. Until I walked out of the precinct that evening. And found a note wedged under my windshield wiper. A single word, scribbled in block letters. Quit. No signature. No explanation. I looked up. The street was empty. But I knew. He wasn't gone. That weekend, I kept my badge on me, even off duty. A habit I never shook after my first year on the force. But this time, it wasn't just habit. It was a shield. Saturday night, I took the patrol car out for a shift I wasn't even assigned. Volunteered for extra hours. I figured if he wanted to follow me, let him do it while I was on duty. Let him know I wasn't running. At first, nothing. A slow, quiet night, calls about a drunk at the Shell station, a couple arguing outside a bar. Normal. Around 2 a.m., I pulled into the station lot to file my reports. The night air was thick. Still. That's when I saw the Caprice again. Parked across the street. Lights off. No movement. I stared at it for a long time. No way this was chance. I keyed my radio. Dispatch, Unit 7, advising suspicious vehicle on Main and Oak. Gray Caprice. No tags. Silence. Then static. Copy, 7. Unit 6 in the area. I waited. No Unit 6 came. The Caprice didn't move. I stepped out of my cruiser, slow. Crossed the street, hand brushing my holster. As I approached, I saw the outline of a figure in the driver's seat. I stopped about 10 feet away. Evening, I said, voice firm. The window stayed up. No sound. Need you to roll your window down. Nothing. I inched closer, heart tapping slow and hard. Then, the window rolled halfway down. A pale hand hung out, 2 fingers extended in a casual, almost lazy gesture. A peace sign. Or something meant to look like one. The man inside spoke, low, almost too soft to hear. Time's almost up. I blinked. Step out of the vehicle. No movement. I repeated it, louder. And then, he smiled. Just a flicker of teeth. The Caprice started rolling backward, slow as a whisper. I reached for the door handle. But before I touched it, the car peeled off. No screech. No engine roar. Just, gone. I chased it 2 blocks before it vanished into the side streets. No plate. No ID. When I called it in, dispatch said there was no Unit 6 on shift. Monday morning, I reported it to the chief. Straightforward. Professional. No paranoia. He listened. Then leaned back in his chair. Sounds like you're working too many doubles, LT. I stared at him. That's it? I asked. He gave me a long, unreadable look. Man's got a right to drive where he wants. Long as he ain't breaking laws. I walked out with my gut in a knot. I thought about requesting transfer. Then, Tuesday morning, I found a photo in my mailbox at the station. It was me. Sitting in my patrol car, head down, probably checking my laptop. Taken from behind. The handwriting on the back was simple. We see you. I didn't show it to anyone. I just folded it once. Slipped it into my pocket. And kept going. Because in Franklin County, the badge didn't protect you. It painted a target. He thought following the rules would keep him safe. 16 years on the force, and all it took was one moment of hesitation to become the enemy. But what haunts him most isn't the betrayal from within, it's the silence of the man he couldn't protect. Because sometimes, the scariest part of the story isn't what they did to you, it's what you let happen. I was parked on the shoulder of a narrow road outside of Millersville, Maryland. Just me and my cruiser, engine humming, windows cracked. The sun was still hanging low behind the trees, barely warming the dew off the grass. It was the kind of shift you tell yourself will be quiet, the kind that tricks you into letting your guard down. I'd been on the Anne Arundel County force for 16 years, and mornings like this always had a way of setting me up for something I didn't see coming. The call was routine. At least, that's what dispatch said, suspicious male loitering near a gas station. 10 miles out, BP off Crane Highway. I acknowledged and pulled onto the road. Didn't think much of it. These kinds of calls usually ended with a kid waiting for a ride or someone walking to work too early. Still, I checked my sidearm, adjusted the vest, and took a deep breath before turning onto the main road. When I got there, it was just a guy, mid-30s, dark jacket, jeans, standing near the side of the station by the ice machine. He looked nervous, but not dangerous. I parked, got out slow, hands visible. The attendant, a white man with a faded polo and nicotine fingers, stood behind the glass, pointing without saying a word. The whole scene already felt off. "Morning," I said, walking up to the man. "You waiting on someone?" He looked at me, eyes twitching with something deeper than just fear. "I work across the street. Bus ain't come yet." I nodded. His ID checked out, no priors. The bus tracker on my phone confirmed a delay. I was ready to clear the call when another unit pulled up. Fast. Tires scraped. It was O'Connell and Vickery, two officers I knew well enough to keep my distance. O'Connell had that buzzed military cut, always smelled like chewing tobacco. Vickery was younger, but eager to show he belonged. They got out quick, hands already on holsters. Vickery had that tight jaw, scanning like he'd walked into a war zone. I stepped forward. "It's handled. Guy's clean, waiting on the bus." O'Connell barely looked at me. "We got the call too. We'll take it from here." I hesitated. "It's already cleared. No threat." But they moved past me anyway, surrounding the man. He backed up, hands up. I saw his eyes flick to me, not pleading, just tired. Like he'd done this before. Like he already knew how this would go. Vickery pushed him against the wall. "Why you pacing, huh? You dealing out here?" "No sir," the man said, steady. "Just waiting for the 6:10. O'Connell laughed under his breath. "You got any priors?" "You look like you do." "I'm just trying to get to work." It wasn't even about suspicion anymore. It was a performance. For each other. For the attendant behind the glass, who watched with sick satisfaction. I stood there, hand resting on my belt, and something in my stomach turned. "Cuff him," O'Connell said. "For what?" I said, louder than I meant. They both turned to me. O'Connell's face barely moved. "Interfering?" I looked at the man. His eyes were locked on mine. No anger. Just resignation. And I hesitated. Then I did something I still replay in my head. I stepped back. They cuffed him, right there, against the brick wall, in front of the traffic, under the slow-moving flag, while people pumped gas and pretended not to look. 10 minutes later, they let him go. Said there wasn't enough to hold him. He walked across the street without a word, not even a glance back. The bus came as he reached the stop. He got on. And that should have been it. But the next day, a notice went out. I was being brought in for internal review. Not them. Me. There'd been a complaint. Not from the man. From the station owner. Said I undermined a lawful arrest and escalated racial tension. Said I'd made the situation worse. At roll call, O'Connell smirked across the room. That week, I started getting the silent treatment. Calls I'd usually get were reassigned. Dispatch grew colder. Locker tampered with. Someone scratched, hero, into my passenger door. Sarcastic. Sharp. At first, I tried to laugh it off. But then, one night, I came out to find my cruiser keys gone. They were in the locker. Inside my bag. The same one I always kept zipped. No sign of a break-in. But they were just gone. And when I reported it, must have misplaced them, the sergeant said, not even looking up. By the weekend, I started parking off-site. Then the text started. Unknown number. Just one word, over and over. Snitch. And then, one night, something worse. A picture. It was me. Sitting in my cruiser. Taken from behind. And in the reflection of the mirror, someone was standing behind my car. Watching. The next morning, I sat in my cruiser outside headquarters for a full 15 minutes before going in. Engine off. Windows cracked. I watched officers walk past me like I wasn't there. No waves, no nods. I'd become something between a ghost and a target. A warning. Inside, it was worse. Vickery bumped my shoulder as we passed in the hallway. Didn't say a word. O'Connell stared at me during briefing like he was waiting for something to snap. I could feel the air shift around me. Like they knew something I didn't. Like a plan had already been set in motion. I thought about the photo again. Whoever took it had gotten close. Real close. That reflection in the mirror, they'd timed it. They knew when I'd be still. Knew the angle. It wasn't a prank. That night, I drove straight home without calling off shift. Left the radio on. Parked my cruiser 2 blocks over and walked the rest of the way. My porch light was flickering. I hadn't noticed that before. It wasn't just busted, it was unscrewed halfway. I started locking the bedroom door at night. Started sleeping with the scanner on low. I was a cop in my own house, too scared to close both eyes. The following week, Internal Affairs called me in. Not about O'Connell or Vickery, they wanted to know why I'd failed to back up fellow officers. Said I seemed detached and hesitant to engage. I kept my answers short, careful. But the investigators' tone made it clear, they weren't looking for truth. They were building a case. That night, someone keyed my personal car. Deep. Side to side. A single word, traitor. I didn't report it. What was the point? Days passed. My shifts grew shorter. My assignments petty, school zone monitoring, mall patrol. Things they gave rookies and guys near retirement. I stopped getting calls altogether. It was exile with a badge. One evening, I pulled into a quiet lot behind a grocery store to eat in peace. No sooner had I unwrapped my sandwich than headlights pulled in fast behind me. Bright. Blinding. I turned, squinting into the rearview. A cruiser. But I couldn't make out the unit number. It just sat there. No one got out. No spotlight. No radio check. Just there. After 10 minutes, it backed out slowly and disappeared. I didn't eat the rest of that sandwich. The next morning, I went to the bus stop across from that same BP station. The man from before, he was there again. We locked eyes for a second. He gave me a slight nod. I wanted to say something. Apologize. Anything. But he turned and boarded without a word. I stood there long after the bus was gone. That night, I came home to find my mailbox open. Inside wasn't mail. It was a folded page from an old incident report. From 2009. My signature was on it. A domestic call gone south, ended in an arrest. The suspect? A cousin of O'Connell's. I barely remembered it. But someone had remembered me. And now, they wanted me to know it. The next day, my access card failed at the department entrance. I had to be buzzed in. They said it was a system glitch. That night, another text. No words. Just a picture of my front door. Taken up close. Too close. The porch light was unscrewed again. I didn't sleep. I just sat by the window, off the lights, phone in hand. But nothing came. At some point, I dozed off. When I woke up, the front door was cracked open. Not much. Just enough to say, we were here. I didn't call it in. I didn't even clean the scratch on the door frame. Instead, I went to the station the next morning and handed in my resignation. 16 years. No pension. No ceremony. No goodbyes. O'Connell walked past me in the parking lot on my way out. He smiled. Not big. Just enough. As if to say, that's right. You learned. It's been 5 months. I don't wear the uniform anymore. I work security for a warehouse now, mostly nights. No one bothers me. No one follows me. But I still park 2 blocks away from home. I still keep the porch light screwed in tight. And some nights, when I can't sleep, I go back to that gas station. I sit in my car across the street and watch the buses come and go. Hoping I'll see that man again. So I can say what I never got the chance to say. But I never do. He thought the uniform would shield him, that the badge would mean something. But out there, under the flickering streetlights and silent stairs, he learned the truth. Some lines aren't blurred, they're burned into the pavement. What followed him that night wasn't just a gang of men, it was a message. And now, even off the clock, he still checks over his shoulder, because some threats don't right away. I just finished a late shift patrolling the west side of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, mostly routine traffic stops and a noise complaint from a trailer park. It was one of those muggy southern nights where the air sticks to your skin, and the crickets chirp louder than the radio. I was tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes, but the kind that builds up over years, the weight of having to wear the uniform and still prove I belong in it. I didn't drive straight home. I needed time to breathe. So I pulled into an old lot behind a shuttered grocery store off Cherry Street. Used to be a Safeway back in the day. Now it was just a shell, broken windows, weeds through the pavement, graffiti on the back walls. It was quiet, though. Still. I turned off the engine and leaned back. Just for a minute. That's when I noticed the headlights. A pair of them, creeping slow along the edge of the lot. Then another. And another. 3 old trucks, boxy Fords and Chevys, lifted, loud exhausts, rolled in together and stopped in a wide arc in front of me. All white. Mud-caked. No plates I could see. They didn't get out. Just idled. Engines low, throaty growls filling the lot. At first, I thought maybe they recognized the cruiser and were just trying to mess with me. I'd had locals glare before, spit near my tires, call me every name but the one my mother gave me. But this felt different. Slower. More deliberate. I clicked my radio. Nothing but static. No signal back here. I checked my sidearm. Loaded, holstered. My vest was still on, badge clipped. But the weight of all of it suddenly felt thin. The truck in the center flashed its brights. Once. Twice. Then all 3 killed their engines. The silence hit harder than the noise. One door opened. Then another. Boots hit gravel. I counted at least 5 figures stepping out, silhouettes under the parking lot light. They didn't say anything. Just stood there, half-lit, watching me. I opened my door, stood up slow. Kept my hands visible. Evening, I said, loud but steady. Can I help y'all with something? No answer. One of them, tall, heavy-set, bald, took a step forward. I recognized the walk. That slow, wide stance meant to take up space. A show of ownership. You lost, boy, he said. My grip tightened around the door. No, sir. Just clearing paperwork before heading home. He looked at the cruiser, then back at me. Funny. Thought that was our job. The others chuckled. One of them spit. You local? Another asked. I nodded. Born and raised. Shame. Place used to be real quiet. I didn't reply. The way they positioned themselves, one near the front of my cruiser, one flanking the passenger side, the others fanned wide, wasn't casual. It was muscle memory. Formation. You one of them TV cops? The bald one asked. Trying to make statements? I shook my head. Just doing my job. He smiled. That's what we're doing too. The way he said it, slow, drawn out, made my stomach drop. I knew the history of this place. I knew about the rumors, the gatherings out near the train yard, the burned-out barns deep in the pines where folks said crosses still got lit when the moon was right. I'd told myself those were just ghost stories. Leftovers from another time. But these men weren't ghosts. They were here. Flesh and blood. And they knew who I was. I started to reach for the radio again, even though I knew it was dead. That's when I saw the bat. The man near the truck bed pulled it out casual, like he was stretching. Aluminum. Worn grip. Dented at the tip. They weren't playing. I backed up toward the cruiser door, hand near my holster. Don't, the bald one said, calm. We ain't gonna shoot you. That word, we, landed hard. We just wanna talk, he said. Ask why a man like you thinks he can wear that uniform around our streets. I didn't answer. Because deep down, I wasn't sure anymore either. I didn't draw my weapon. I could've, every part of my training screamed for it. But 5 armed white men in a dark parking lot with no witnesses? That wasn't a standoff. That was a death sentence. Instead, I closed the cruiser door, slow and quiet, and stood still. What do you want? I asked, eyes scanning their positions. Bald one shrugged. Like I said. Just talk. He took another step forward, close enough now that I could smell the tobacco on his breath. The others circled wider behind me. One tapped the bat against his palm. Another lit a cigarette like it was any other Friday night. See, we don't like confusion out here, he continued. Used to be, you saw a badge and you knew what side it stood on. Lately, that line's been getting blurry. He leaned in. You're the blur. I didn't respond. My hand hovered just above my belt. Not reaching. Not threatening. Just, there. Ready, but not stupid. You think wearing that badge means you're one of them, he said, voice low. But they don't see you that way. And neither do we. His words settled heavy, like sweat down my back. He pointed toward my cruiser. What happens when backup don't come for you? You think that radio makes you safe? He gestured to the others. Go ahead. One of them walked over to the cruiser and rapped the bat on the hood, once, twice, like a warning bell. Then he moved to the driver's side and spat on the handle. I didn't stop him. Another reached into the truck and pulled out a phone. Started filming. Go ahead, officer, bald one said. Show 'em how you handle your own. Show 'em how you stand your ground. I looked at the camera. Red light blinking. This wasn't just a threat. It was a setup. They wanted footage, wanted me to lash out. To draw. To prove something ugly on film. And I knew exactly how the narrative would be twisted. Another headline. Another statistic. Another black man with a badge losing control. I took a step back, kept my voice steady. I'm leaving. Bald one smirked. No, you're not. One of the others reached into the truck bed. Pulled out something heavier, a crowbar. That's when I made the call. Not to dispatch. To myself. I turned and walked toward the cruiser. Slow. Deliberate. Every step felt like a gamble. If they wanted to stop me, they could. I didn't run. I didn't flinch. I just opened the door and got in. They didn't follow. Didn't try to block me. They just stood there, watching. As I reversed out of the lot, the bat scraped across the rear quarter panel, a slow, dragging screech. Like nails on bone. I didn't look back. I drove until the town blurred into pine trees and the road went silent. That night, I filed no report. No names. No badge numbers. No incident. Because there was nothing to prove. No footage I could show. No damage they'd admit to. Just a story that'd be turned back on me if I tried. The next morning, I walked into the station and found my locker open. Everything inside soaked. Uniform, boots, even the small framed photo of my father I kept tucked behind my spare cuffs. No broken lock. No camera footage. Nothing to trace. I knew then it wasn't just them. Not just some drunk white boys in lifted trucks. It was deeper. Quieter. A warning passed down from the past to remind me I didn't belong. I transferred out of Pine Bluff 2 weeks later. Moved south, took a job doing private security outside Baton Rouge. No more cruiser. No badge. Just quiet nights and camera feeds. But even now, I check the parking lot before I park. I screw in my porch light tight. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, I wake up certain I heard a bat scraping concrete outside my window. Thanks so much for watching. Your support truly means the world to me. Every like, every comment helps this channel grow and keeps me going. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new upload. My dream right now is to reach 100 subscribers, and with your help, I know it's possible. See you in the next one.